am apologizing because I wanted to spend more time with Roberta Brown Cooper, who has written a recipe book about African cuisine that I got to get a copy of. Ms. Cooper, welcome to Win TV.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Barnes.
Yeah. So, so let us see a copy of your book first. I want to people to know what it is. What's the name of it now?
It's called African Food as a Culinary Journey.
It is a beautiful cover too. I really, really think it's a beautiful cover. Why did you decide to do this cookbook?
As a lover of international cuisine and as a flight attendant traveled for 28 years,
Hmm.
I noticed that there were no cookbooks on the newsstands or in bookstores that carried African food from all regions of Africa. And so I decided that I was going to educate people about African food, the richness of African food. This is why I wrote the book.
One of the things that it's in some of my travels, Roberta, if you don't mind me calling you Roberta,
Sure.
is that it's the seasoning, it's the flavor. I mean, there's
Yes.
rice, and I know here in the DC area they have this jollof rice competition sometimes, but there's rice, and then there's African rice dishes. Talk about what, because when you say African cookbook, each country has their own touch to similar dishes. So do you look at those as well?
Yes, I do. And I did when I was researching and putting the recipes together. Because though we have foods that are from different regions, but a lot of the foods that we eat in Africa are very similar and prepared in similar preparations. And so when you look in East Africa, they have certain foods they eat there, and they eat beans, they eat pap, which is mealie meal, corn meal from corn meal, and also in West Africa, we have some of those dishes that are similar also. But you said you mentioned the jollof rice boar. Jollof rice is a West African dish that is very popular, and we have different ways we prepare jollof rice. And I happen to be from Liberia. Our jollof rice is quite different from what the jollof rice I've had from Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and the Gambia.
It's all good. But what makes
It's
jollof
all good,
rice what it
yes.
is? I mean, what does Liberia do that might be different than the others?
Liberian jollof rice, it happens to be my favorite
Okay.
dish, not because I'm only from Liberia, but because it's a wholesome dish. It
Mm-hmm.
has vegetables, it has protein. You can omit the protein if you desire, but it's very wholesome and it has a lot of flavors, a lot of spices and herbs in Liberian jollof rice.
What are some of the other staples that African dishes have? I mean, like you said, there's rice, there's beans, um, fish. What other kinds of staples go into the recipes that you selected? And really, how did you select the recipes? Because you could have gone a lot of different ways with this. So how did you select them?
The recipes were selected from the foods that I shared with home cooks and other chefs. We sat down and I looked at them and I felt that they represent the entire continent of Africa because they're laid out in regions. North Africa, South Africa, East Africa, West Central Africa. They're all divided in regions. And that's what makes my cookbook very unique.
How can people get a copy of your cookbook?
You can get my copy. I got a copy of the cookbook from my website, africanfoodis.com.
African food is okay.
Is.com.
.com. Sherry's going to put that up now. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really good. How long did it take you to put this together?
It took me 30 years to research and write the book. It was a labor of love, but it was worth
Yes.
it, every bit of it, because it represents all of Africa. It represents the continent. And also, I'd like to mention that the foods that we eat in Africa are very similar to the foods that are eaten here. And so we share a culture. We share our culture still reigns all over the world. And I've introduced people to this cookbook. And I have also pictures that are in here in this cookbook that are that were designed by African American, and the
Mm.
cover of this cookbook was designed by a Nigerian artist. a renowned Nigerian artist, Babalola Lawson, in Nigeria. And so the cookbook is very easy also to navigate and to prepare the recipes. We do have some recipes that are labor intensive, but we also invite friends and family members to join you and have a festive time preparing the recipes.
You were talking about labor intensive. I remember on a trip to South Africa and visiting a family, and they had me in the kitchen with them preparing pop. And I think I may have, gained a couple muscles, just trying to pull that, make it. I didn't know how, the work that goes into that. But when you say labor intensive, what do you mean? I'm talking about, physical labor, but you're talking about what?
Just preparing the dishes. For instance, there are some herbs and spices that you need to add to the pot. If you have few people together and you have, which is something very common among Africans, we gather together in the kitchen. We have different preparing the. If you're making jollof rice, you have someone preparing the meat, the vegetables, putting cooking everything can go into the one pot. So that people consider it labor intensive, but it's fun because you have African music, or sometimes you have somebody who is a griot telling the stories about
Mm,
Africa, what we eat in Africa, why different things, why foods are different in different places. But yet still it brings the community together. And that's very interesting. That's why I consider labor intensive. For us, as African mothers, women cooking, we don't consider it labor intensive, but it might be labor intensive for someone else.
And what about the seasonings? Because sometimes when you want a traditional African dish or any dish, a lot of times you can't buy those seasonings in your typical grocery store. But do you make you know, recommendations if you need something that folks don't like? I've seen shrimp, dried shrimp, or things like that. What does your I'm sorry, cookbook provide for options or alternatives?
Well, we are blessed in a way that because a lot of the seasonings that we use in Africa are sold here in a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
shops that are here. So if you want to omit any seasoning that you feel will be, sensitive to, you don't have to include it. A lot of the seasonings are here in America that you can use to season your food.
Right, but I guess did you find that a lot of the seasonings are in your typical grocery stores, or is it sometimes an exciting outing to go to, let's say, an African or an international grocery store to buy some of the product?
They're in the international grocery stores and many Asian stores.
Okay,
You will find a lot of the seasonings in many Asian stores. And another thing I
wonderful.
would like to add also is my book makes it easier to measure because one of the things that in Africa we do not measure when we're cooking. It's traditional for us. And so I learned this when I was attending my culinary school here in Gaithersburg, l'Académie de Cuisine. The chefs taught us how to measure, and I used that same precise measurement in putting together the recipes to be able to measure and make it easier for the buyer or who wants to use the cookbook.
Well, it sounds really, really, I'm getting hungry just talking about food and
Great
African food,
food.
which I haven't had any in too long. But again, what you said, jollof rice is one of your favorites, but is there another one of your
Egusi
favorite?
soup, egusi soup and pounded yam. It's a
Mm,
Nigerian dish.
mm-hmm,
It's one of my
mm-hmm.
favorites also. I have several favorites.
Okay. All right. Then what about curries?
Curry is mostly prepared in Southern Africa. I
Mm-hmm,
enjoy curry,
mm-hmm.
and
And
it's very good.
you have recipes in there that also
Yes, I do. I have recipes
involve.
covering the entire continent of Africa, all regions of Africa. My travels with Pan American World Airways and American International Airways really gave me the opportunity to be able to gather recipes from fantastic people I met across the globe and also in the continent of Africa.
Wow,
And so
that's
I have every
fantastic.
recipe that anyone would need in African food is. It's a culinary journey. It's a journey into the continent of Africa. You can travel from West Africa to East Africa and you have a great meal. You go
With
from North Africa to Southern Africa and you will find the best food also. It's a journey.
Wow. Well, I'm going to try to take that journey, Roberta. I'm going to get a copy of your book and
Thank you.
invite friends over and play some good old, African music.
African music, and it'll be fun if you
Exactly.
also have a griot.
Oh, okay. All
Yes,
right. Thank you. We're going to
to
follow
connect
up.
the stories of Africa and African Americans here, because
Wonderful.
food plays an important role in our food. I mean, in what we eat and what we do together. It brings families together. It brings friends together. It's always a festive time preparing African food.
I truly believe that, and I want to thank you so much for creating this book and creating this opportunity for us to actually do that, to get together, enjoy family, friends, and food, and good music. So, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your time and your creativity here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on your show. Thank
All
you.
righty. Thank you. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one.
You too.
Where do you